Hello everybody, my name's Steve, I'm the British Railroader and welcome back to the Model Railway Room for another quick update on Brooklyn Park. Now before I start the update, I just want to address a couple of comments that I received about my video that I posted, I think it was yesterday, about the NCE Powercab and the horn whistle button, and how actually for some of the UK locomotives that button just doesn't work. And I explained that it's to do with the way the handset is set up and it follows fairly much American practice. Now, a couple of people commented and a few people said, well, hang on a minute. A lot of my English locos are set up with the horn on F2. And if you look at Hornby's new decoders that have just come out, which are Bluetooth but can be used just with a normal DCC system, as far as I can tell, the horn and whistles are all set to number 2 on those. Bachmann, which was the company that was noted to have the horn on the particular model that Ian mentioned on F3 and F4, are completely inconsistent. Some of their locos, the horn and whistle is on F2, sometimes it's on F3. Someone did say to me that a lot of UK models with sound tend to have the brake set up on F2. I then looked at some of the aftermarket sound suppliers, and again it was very inconsistent. Even within one supplier, some of its loco sound profiles would have the horn on F2, some would have it on F3. So there is no consistency with where the with which function operates the horn or the whistle. And someone did say to me, a couple of people in fact said that the thing with the NCE Powercab is you can remap some of the buttons on here so that you can have certain functions going to certain things. And someone basically said it would be possible to set the horn whistle, instead of operating F2 instantaneously, you could set it, for example, to operate F3. And I think it's possible, because I had a look through the manual, and even though I couldn't quite get my head around it, there are some instructions about horn channels and stuff like that. But my suggestion, personally, would be not to. And the reason I'm saying that is because of the inconsistency. So in Ian's case, he might think, well, that'll be fine. I will just set the horn whistle button up so that it sets off at F3 and therefore I can play my horn using that button. And that's great for the loco he's got at the moment, but not necessarily for the next loco he buys, or the one after that, or the one after that, depending on who's supplying it, depending what they feel like that day, if they're Bachmann for some reason, and depending on what kind of chip it's got in it, etc. So yes, it is possible to set up your NCE Powercab slightly differently so that you can, access whatever function from the horn whistle channel. I personally wouldn't, because at the end of the day, it looks like people are tending towards using F2 for the horn, just like they do with American practice. And as with most things with DCC, what kind of is standard in America kind of ends up being standard over here. The other thing is as well, strangely enough, and just because somebody mentioned to me about the brake function on some English sound locos is set to F2, actually having it so that you can activate it using the horn whistle button here means that you would not have it on all the time, and the brake would only come on when you're pressing it. So actually that would be quite handy if you're manually applying a brake. But anyway, that was a follow-up to my NCE Powercab talk last week. Moving on, I've got a few updates on the layout. You can probably see some things behind me. We'll move the camera over there in a second. Something I just want to say. So this morning I visited my friend Roger, who runs Flare Rail, website address coming up down below. And he had a box full of secondhand bits and pieces. And there were a couple of US wagons there. So there's this Rock Island coal hopper and this Shell tanker wagon. These are older Bachmann models. They are not probably the most refined you're ever going to find. But I was looking at them and I was thinking, do you know what? Just by changing a couple of bits on here would at least bring them a bit more in line with some of the newer, more detailed things. They're never going to be that way, but it would at least make them more compatible. So what I'm probably going to do is just a little video at some point in the next week where I'll just show you what changes I make to these just to make them run better, operate better, and then, you know, what you can do to perhaps make them look a little less toy-like. But actually, when you look at them, I mean, dimensionally, they're probably pretty accurate, and they've got a lot of useful life left in them. So that's a little project that will be coming up soon. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go over to the layout and just show you what I've been up to. Okay, here we are at the layout, and I'm just starting over in this corner. So everybody knows this corner quite well. This is the bit that is pretty much, I would say, done for a certain level of done. There's obviously lots of detailing to do, but the major work has been done. Going around here, I think the first thing we're going to do is go drone-like, as I like to do, over this building here. And you can see this area down here has now been turfed up, grassed up, and is starting to get some rubbish, which again, I like. I want it to be a little bit grotty. This is meant to be somewhere in New York City, which, whilst I'm sure it's a lot cleaner than it used to be, is always a bit grungy if any cities like that. Moving over here, we're going to ignore this big beige thing for the moment, but we're going to come down here and you can see that I've started adding grass to this area. So as I explained last time, I got Lance Mindheim's latest book, which is about scenery for switching layouts. And I started reading it, and basically it's got me a little bit inspired and enthused to actually get some work done on the layout. And what I've done here is in between the tracks, as you can see, there's a lot of static grass going on. We've got ground scatter, ground material. And at the back here, probably the biggest change that you can see is the factory has now been painted and weathered. Now, again, it's complete for a certain degree of completeness. A few people have said to me, am I going to put an interior in? And when I've posted the first photos of this, it was just completely empty inside. And it now looks a lot darker because what I've done is I've just made floors out of cardboard and put some card in the back. So if you look, can't really see it, but it's done in such a way that you can't, you see, look, if you look through that upper window, you can't see the lower windows. So at least gives it a little darkness. Now, one of the things I was discussing with, funnily enough, with Roger this morning was about the buildings and about, well, what happens when I finish the layout? Because the rate I'm going, I could probably get the scenery done on most of the layout probably within the next few months if I really put my mind to it. I've got all the kits for the buildings. I've started putting those together. And what I said to him was that, as far as I'm concerned, there's two parts to finishing a layout. And the first part is kind of getting the scenery down and getting the buildings in. But then all of the buildings need detailing. And that's something that could be done later. So the layout is kind of got a little bit more complete than it was. But even a building looking like that isn't fully finished and probably won't be for a long time. I've also put in the foreground there the little shanty hut that I've got. Who knows whether you'd find one in New York, especially in that state. It might need some graffiti, but it just nicely fills that little spot. Now, going back to this corner, as you can see, there is a big beige block, and this has basically been made out of foam core board, and it's a stand-in. So I've discussed about what I was going to put, what I want to put there, and to go with the basketball court. To go with the basketball court, I want to put a school in this corner, and I've kind of got a kit earmarked for it. It's the Walther's post office kit, which I think would bash quite nicely into a low relief school building. But you know, that's it's not the priciest kit in the world, but it's, you know, there is a monetary value that at the moment I haven't got the money for. So what I decided to do was kind of just mock up something roughly the size of the kit and just place it there so that I kind of know what I'm working with. So it's a real filler. It's just something just to fit into the space, and it gives a visual cue as to how things are going to look. So it's not permanent. It's just literally there. The water tower on top, I need to paint, etc. Whilst the water tower on the factory building is nice and grungy, this one might be done up in some bright colours. I've seen some photos of some very highly decorated ones in the New York and especially in the Brooklyn area, so that might be quite nice. So that is most of what I wanted to show everybody. If I just move around to this side of the layout, as you can see, it's still stacked up. One thing is this building over the back here behind the subway car. So this is partially done. Yes, it is a very bright green. I do appreciate that. And the green is quite glossy, but that's just the initial painting. That'll all be knocked down with weathering, and probably before I weather it, it's going to get a coat of matte varnish. So there we go. That is where I'm at the moment on the layout. Well, that's it for this update. I hope that seeing the bits and pieces on the layout might, like I have been, inspire you to get going with things like your scenery. But thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please consider hitting the subscribe button. As I always say, the more subscribers I've got, the merrier. And just remember that if you do subscribe, click the little bell, because that will give you notifications of when new videos come through. So once again, all I can say is thanks for watching. But this is Steve, the British Railroader, saying goodbye for now from my model railway room. Bye-bye.